first, we're following a major developing story in the oil market. Crude shooting higher on news that Iran seized 2 tankers in the Straits of Hormuz. We're watching this reaction very, very carefully. Karen, you're noting that in the aftermarket session, S&P futures looked like it was reacting to this. But take a look at the oil market. You would think that there would be a little bit more to this than what the oil market is pricing in. What do you make of all this?
Geopolitical doesn't seem to move. It doesn't seem to move oil at all. Steve actually alluded to this a couple days ago, I think. I don't think geopolitical risk or uncertainty really has any effect on the oil market. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But I do think it has, for the broader market, I think it has huge implications. And we'll talk about it quickly. I don't think Iran wouldn't do this on their own, I don't think. I think there's clearly, they got the backing of somebody out there. And I think this has far greater ramifications. I think the market is underestimating how important this is. And again, a VIX at 14, even before this, is too low in my opinion.
You were concerned prior to this. How much more concerned do you get because of this?
I am concerned because of this, but not as much as I was concerned about the other fundamental things, being that, you know, I'm afraid of uncertainty in the economy, that we're going to start to see it in earnings for industrial. We saw that yesterday with URI, but just with spending, by how confident CEOs feel in the economy, how confident they are spending. On the other hand, the consumer is still going gangbusters. We're seeing that. That's the strength in the market for now.
Right.
Oil has been collapsing. So to Guy's point, you couldn't have scripted a more bullish scenario, could you? Right?
For oil, yeah.
Yesterday, what did Iran want? Iran wanted a deal. That was what rallied the market. So I think this is a little bit, maybe behind the scenes, a little puppeteering. I'm not nervous about this.
You're not. It's no big deal.
Oil has been collapsing. I think oil would be the first thing that would react to this. Iran wants a nuclear deal. I think that's what's going on. They're trying to maybe pull a Trump.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you know, crude's down 7% on the week. I mean, I'll just say this, that if there was any real situation with fatalities or something like that and things really got ratcheted up, you'd see crude back above 60 very quickly. And so, you know, I don't know who wants what or who's pulling what strings or anything like that. What's pretty clear is that, you know, the Brits want a deal, the French want a deal, the Germans want a deal. That's why they stuck to the deal. You know what I mean? So this has this sort of thing, the potential from a geopolitical standpoint to kind of splinter a lot of different allies and, adversaries alike. So there's nothing good about this, unless, to your point, Steve, you think it's just pushing everybody to the table.
It's pushing everyone to a conclusion to try to get a deal done. And I think trade is going to work in with this. So I think you're right. I think it's going to be trade. It's going to be crude. It's going to be the nuclear deal. And somehow, some way, I think we're all going to be okay.
Here's the problem. I just want to be really serious, and I don't mean to sound dramatic, but when you start having boats being deployed and all this sort of stuff, accidents happen. Okay, this is how geopolitical accidents happen. I've been very fortunate that we haven't had this sort of stuff. Things are probably about as dire as they get. I don't mean like we got gunboats lined up and this and that or whatever, but it would take the seizing of a British ship and a couple soldiers, Brit soldiers, you know, to perish or something, and you got yourself a situation.
You guys are both basically saying that we are underestimating the potential risk that could come of this situation.
Well, there's two parts. There's geopolitical risk in the world, which I believe is real. However, it used to be that tensions in the Middle East like this would cause havoc in the oil markets.
Yes.
But that's not the case anymore, because
demand is so weak.
Demand is weak, and supply is very, very different than it used to be. If you think about U.S. supply, that sort of changes the dynamic.
Right. So then maybe the oil market is giving us a false read on this whole situation.
I think that's at the crux of it, is that we are no longer dependent on Saudi oil. We're no longer dependent on Middle Eastern oil. If that were the case, to Karen's point, years ago, the market would be down, oil would be ripping higher on these type of headlines.
Okay, so then, but let's play this out further, because if we're saying that the oil market is not going to give us the proper read on the level of tensions in this area, then the geopolitical risk that can be introduced to the equity markets could actually be there without us knowing, because we're looking at the oil market not reacting.
Your premise makes a ton of sense, but I look at it the other way, where we haven't seen Trump be Trump on this. We haven't seen his rhetoric ratchet as high as it could have been. He's actually been softer. He's been giving Iran a way out all through this. Tough on nuke, but really easy on these incidents.
Well, we'll see. I mean, the night's still young.
Well, that's why you saw the risk coming off the market.
No, the night's still young, and I agree. I don't think it's 10 years ago, this is a crude story. 5 years ago, it's probably a crude story. Yeah. I don't necessarily think, to Karen's point, it's a crude story now. I think it's a broader market story. And again, Steve says cooler heads will prevail. I hope that's the case. But to Dan's point, I mean, things, when tensions mount like this, bad things can happen. And I do think the market underestimates a number of things leading into this And this is just one more thing in a weekend where, I mean, clearly a lot can happen.